I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call.
Yes, thank you. Bear with me. Alderman O'Brien is present. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clay. Alderman Moran. Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Clemmons.
Here.
Alderwoman Kelly.
I am here. I'm attending via Zoom due to recovery from surgery and recommendations from my doctor. And I am alone in this room and I can hear everyone.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Como. Alderman Dow. Alderman Gavea.
Here.
Alderman Karen. Alderman Theobald.
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Here.
And Alderman Wilshire.
I am here.
Okay. I think we have 11 members of the board present.
I think we have 9.
9?
Yep.
Okay, better counting than I
Thank
do.
you. 6 absent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
10. Shoshana's 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm 10, yeah.
Alderwoman.
Recount.
Okay,
Recount.
we'll get it.
We'll get it. Tonight we have a public hearing on Resolution 23-134, authorizing the mayor to enter into a federal aid program project agreement with the state of New Hampshire and Department of Transportation for the purpose of improvements to the Walnut Street Oval intersection and to accept and appropriate $2,061,847.26 for the project. Please join us. You can take a seat if you'd like.
Sure.
Just introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. Thanks everyone for coming out tonight. Dan Hudson, City Engineer. Before you tonight is a request to enter into a municipal agreement with the DOT, which is standard for all projects that have DOT funding. This one's for the Walnut Street Oval project. The goal of that project is to improve traffic flow, better connect the Veterans Memorial Parkway to Main Street, improve bicycle and pedestrian accommodation and safety, and expand access for downtown residents and businesses. This project is 80-20 funding share with the DOT and the federal highway, where the federal highway will pick up 80% of the project cost and the city will bear 20% of the cost. The city previously authorized a bond resolution via R-22-038 that addressed both West Pearl Street but also Walnut Oval project in terms of the match. So the match has already been appropriated, but we do need to enter now into this agreement with DOT so that we can begin the design of the project. The DOT has a specific process that needs to be followed for these projects through their local project administration program. There'll be a full public involvement process as part of that as things develop. So I know there's been some studies in the past and we have some ideas about where we may go with this, but we'll basically be starting and then over, and there'll be an opportunity to re-vet everything to come to the preferred alternative for the project. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Any questions? Alderman Lopez.
Can you just describe the general intent of the project? I know increasing the downtown flow and all that stuff was mentioned, but is this the street reversal for East Pearl?
So yeah, we do envision that would be part of it. The back in 2015, there was a downtown circulation study that was done, We talked about reversing West Pearl, as you referenced. Yeah, right now, it's not easy to do that, to come off the Parkway and go down Central and go straight across to West Pearl. Actually, you can't, because it's, you know, currently, it's the one-way pattern comes at you. So we do believe that'll be an outcome of this project. The intent is to make that route downtown more streamlined, more intuitive, so that people will use that route more. So I do think that's something that will come out of this project. Again, we'll look at a bunch of alternatives, but that was one of the primary goals of this project, was to improve the connection to Main Street. That's the logical way to do it.
Alderman Lopez.
Can you tell me about pedestrian safety features that might be part of this, or if that would be something else? I know there was a woman who was hit in the oval last year, and a lot of the clock tower residents particularly pointed to their belief that there was inadequate lighting, that there's businesses in unusual places, so people will try to cross naturally. Is that all within the scope of this? Will we be looking at pedestrian travel and safety?
Yes, it certainly is. We'll be looking at the complete oval, so all the, you know, there's kind of 4 major quadrants on the oval, but that'll be part of it, to look at where those pedestrian demand routes are, and then provide safe crossings. Anytime you do a pedestrian crossing, you want it well lit, so that'll be part of it. We'll also probably evaluate RFPs or that type of things to further enhance safety, as well as hopefully some traffic calming measures, so as you go through, maybe you're at a lower speed than currently what we are, so any crashes with pedestrians are, you know, less likely to be damaging. So those will definitely all be parts of the study.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Do you have something? Okay, go ahead, Alderman Chetty. I was going to wait till the regular board meeting, but, I mean, yeah, the budget meeting. Go ahead.
Okay, well, you know, normally
There's
I
no
wouldn't
public.
take up the time during the public hearing, but there's no public here, so,
You're fine.
thank you. So just for the public who might be watching, just to clarify, this resolution just authorizes the mayor to enter into an agreement with the state to accept the state's portion of this money. It's not, we haven't made any decisions about you know, what this project's going to end up looking like. Right? I mean, we haven't gone that far down that road yet, so to speak.
Yes, I think that's fair to say. As I said, we'll be going through a complete project process, so there'll be ample opportunity for people to provide input, you know, both residents, business owners, other stakeholders. We've done those previous studies, so that's, you know, history that we can look back to and build upon, but no, there's no predetermined outcomes here. We'll go through a process and see what comes out the other end, but the intent is to accomplish those things that I noted, which was make a better connection to downtown, as well as improve pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, all those sorts of things.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. And follow up to Alderman Jetty's questions. Tonight's meeting with the budget is supposed to be about the financing, to which to get the financing for this particular project approved, and that is accepting this particular bond. What the finished project, how many lights, crosswalks, all different things, it comes under the perusal of a different committee, which probably, I assume, may go to infrastructure. And you're a member of infrastructure, so as you know, our custom, that's when we will come into the nuts and bolts of such technical things, or what we're going to be dealing with in the future. I just want to set that so you know what the ground rules are this evening.
Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien, did you want to take over the public hearing?
Thank you, Madam President.
Well, I mean,
On that note, I'll accept testimony in favor of R-23-134, authorizing the mayor to enter into a federal aid program project agreement with the state of New Hampshire Department of Transportation for the purpose of improvements to the Walnut Street Oval intersection, and to accept and appropriate $2 million, $61,847 $1,000.26 for the project, if I said that correctly. That's a lot of change. Okay, seeing no member of the public to accept testimony in favor, I will close testimony in favor and open testimony in opposition. Seeing no members of the public present, I will close the testimony in opposition. I will again open as our procedure testimony in favor. With no members of the public present, I will close the testimony in favor and now open up the testimony in opposition. Seeing no members of the public present, I will close the testimony in opposition. At this particular time, I would like to close the public hearing on Resolution R-23-134 at 7:11 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hudson, would you like to stay for? Thank you, sir. Okay. Alderman Clemmons, I would like to have a motion that that we would be adjourned from the special meeting, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor signify
By
by
roll
saying.
call.
Oh, by roll call. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. I'm catching up. Okay, this will be done by roll call. Alderman O'Brien votes yea. Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Of course, yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Cavea.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Yes.
And Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Motion carries. I'll declare the meeting adjourned at 7:13. And to the general public, if you can still hold fast, we're going to go right into the budget hearing. And of course, all other aldermen are welcome to stay if you so wish.
I'll stay. Why not?
I think we need you, and we appreciate you.
No, you got a quorum. You got a quorum.
Well, we
here.
do have to quorum.
We do.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Alderman Clemmons. Okay. Madam President, you're leaving or just changing?
No, I'm
Okay.
just changing seats.
Okay, get something more comfortable.
She's on the committee. I hope she's not leaving.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, if we're all set, I'll call them for a meeting of the Budget Review Committee, this being Monday, July 21st, 2023, at 7:14 p.m. in the automatic chamber. I will be the presiding officer. Alderman Richard Dowd has a family commitment this evening and was unable to attend. So let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. This will, let me see. Okay. Alderman John Sullivan.
Here?
Alderwoman at-large Shoshana Kelly.
I am here. I'm attending via Zoom because I am recovering from surgery and I am alone in this room.
Alderman Ernest Jettie.
Here.
Alderman June Karen. Absent. Alderman at-large Michael O'Brien is present, and our chairman, Richard A. Dowd, is absent. I declare a quorum.
I'm here.
Also in attendance.
I'm on the committee.
Yes, did I? I'm sorry, I
You
didn't
skipped me.
call you. Alderman Wilshire is present, thank you.
Thank you.
Also in attendance is Alderman Clemmons. Dan Hudson of Engineering. And
Over here, these two.
oh, thank you. Alderwoman Timmons. And Alderman Tebow. CFO, Jesus.
Griffin?
Mr. Griffin from the CFO. Mhm. Believe it or not, folks, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. On some days, okay. All right, did I leave anybody inadvertently out? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll open up for public comment. Seeing nobody from the general public present, we will close public comment. We'll go into communications, which there are none. Unfinished business, there is none. Before us this evening is new business resolutions. We're here to discuss R-23-133 relative to transfers of $110,000 from the Department 162 Street Lining Account 54100 Electricity to Department 159 Hydrants Fire Protection Account 54835 Hydrant Fees. Do I have a motion? Alderman Wilshire?
I'll make a motion to recommend final passage of Resolution 23-133.
Thank you. And Mr. Griffin, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Griffin, CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector. This is what I would call our traditional housekeeping of being a little bit short in the hydrants. This is bills that we pay monthly to Penachuk Corp. And Penachuk does have the ability through their regulatory process of making investments and getting some of those dollars back that they can charge to their customers, like the city of Nashua. So fortunately, very quick transfer would be $110,000 from street lighting, which we have very good news. We have about $175,000 of unspent appropriations there. And that transfer, should you wish, would eliminate the $109,000 shortfall in the appropriation for hydrants for fiscal 2023.
Okay. Additional questions by members of the board? Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking through the fiscal statements, and they only go through May. You alluded a little bit to it. In department number 54835, there was, through May, there was $198,000 left there. And then also through May, there was in department 5400, which is street lighting, there was $215,000 left. So I know we're going to take $110,000 from, I have a few questions. What are the current balances in both of those departments, please?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, you may.
In June, we received invoices totaling $307,479.87, which created a year-to-date expenditure of $3,609,472.84. That shortfall is $109,472.84. So with this $110,000 transfer, that negative number will be positive. Second question was the street lighting. We received a bill for $30,118.22 for June, which provides a year-to-date expense of $334,493, leaving about $175,000 of surplus, $110,000 of which we'd like to use here.
Follow up?
Thank you. Where can we find a detailing of what needed to be done to these hydrants to get an idea of why there was a shortfall on here?
So maybe if I may, Mr. Chairman, hydrants get billed to the city based on a formula. We work with Penachuk. They provide us estimates at the beginning of the year. And as I mentioned, during the year, depending upon some of their activity of either recognizing some capital needs, they do get regulatory recovery, so they don't run short of funds on their own. But the detail, we just have to produce the bills for you and the committee if you wish.
Would that be through finance? Would that come through finance?
No, well, my financial group would package all of the invoices, we can send it to you,
Okay, thanks.
which I think would be important because it's a big number, but it's utility-based. It's the PUC basically creates the rate that they charge us. So it's not, we own Pennachuck, but we can't say, don't bill us for the services because the PUC requires it. But certainly we can get you the detail of the bills.
I appreciate it.
Additional follow-up?
Thank you. Since we just approved fiscal year 2024, for all of these line items, how do you feel we are positioned financially? I mean, I understand we don't have a crystal ball when it comes to fire hydrants, but just looking at the trend and whatnot, how do you feel that we've appropriated money for fiscal year 2024? Will we be here a year from now moving monies?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we could be back, but I'm very comfortable with the street lighting. I think that's in good shape, but it provides a little bit of a cushion for us. We work with Pennachuck pretty extensively on the rate side, so once we see things, we'll be able to duly note it and figure out a way of paying that bill that needs to be paid.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Yeah. And if I may, Mr. Griffin, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, the city does pay for the hydrants, but whenever there is a fire, and you got to understand, some of the behemoths that the fire department has, the capability of 1,200 to 2,000 gallons a minute, that is free. It's just the one cost that we pay annually for those particular hydrants. Alderman Theobald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm obviously not on the committee, but I do have a question. I mean, I think it's great that, we have the ability to move this money, because if we didn't, then obviously we'd have a shortfall and we'd have to figure out a way to do that, right? My question is, why have we come up so short on the street lighting? Like, why was that less than we anticipated? Because our rate's been pretty much the same, right? I think we're running 5 cents. So is it, maybe this is a question for Mr. Hudson, are we not replacing street lights out there? Or why is that coming in shorter than, anticipated? I mean, you figure you probably have a rate of how many street lights we have to replace every year and what the cost of the electricity to run those lights. So why do we have extra money, I guess, in that?
Mr. Chairman,
Is that something we have,
we conservatively budget that number. When the current administration transferred the lights to LED, the bill several years ago was about $800,000. Now it's down to $500,000 less. So it's almost cut in half. I believe we replace very few lights, but we do have a team that basically, I think we have the light, we provide it to their line people. They want to make sure that they're replacing a light, but we've done very well with the cost, the tariff cost of street lighting. So that's really, it's conservative budgeting, and I kind of look at the two together, believe it or not, utilities, street lighting and hydrants, and we did this same transaction last year, and I know you were a big supporter of it last year as well, so thank you.
Follow-up?
I can't remember, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't remember on this year's budget. Did we keep the budget the same for street lighting, or did we bring it down a little bit? Notice that we have had to do this the last 2 years.
I believe we added, Mr. Chairman and others, slight increase for the cost of replacing lights. We have to kind of buy the lights, and then so as we go forward in time, we have to make sure we have enough money, not only to pay the utility bill, but to pay the cost of the product to create the light.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Additional questions? Seeing none, I will call for a vote on R-23-133 by roll call. Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman at-large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Ernest Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman at large Laurie Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman at large Michael O'Brien votes yes. Motion carries.
Don't you need one of them or no?
No, there's 4 of us. 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. That makes a quorum.
Oh, gotcha, because Ernie, okay,
Yep.
gotcha. I forgot.
That's all right.
I'd much rather have you bring it up to make sure. Yes. We appreciate it, thank you. Okay, also before us this evening is R-23-134, authorizing the mayor to enter into a federal aid program project agreement with the state of New Hampshire Department of Transportation for the purpose of improvements to the Walnut Street Oval intersection and to accept and appropriate $2 million, $61,847.26 for the project. Do I have a motion, Alderman Wilshire?
I make a motion to recommend final passage of Resolution 23-134.
Okay, motion is for final passage. And Mr. Hudson, would you like to step forward? Mr. Hudson, can you give us, again, I know you did it at the earlier hearing, but for people that may have turned in late, can you give an overview of what this particular project is, please?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So this resolution seeks to approve the city entering into agreement with DOT for this project. The project is to make changes at the Walnut Street Oval to improve traffic flow, pedestrian safety, better accommodate bicycles, and make a more direct connection to downtown from the Veterans Memorial Parkway. Project funding is a 80-20 split with DOT, 80% being borne by the federal government, 20% city funds. And the funding for the city share was previously authorized under R-22-038. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Any questions, members of the board? Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking into this, and if anybody wanted to know, I found it under the Downtown Circulation Improvement Study, page 28, goes directly to the Walnut Street Oval. And then there are some open questions, but you answered them now and then earlier about, we don't have details about the project, which brings me up to my question, which is, there seems to be a lot of options on this, signalized versus roundabout, and then there seem to be sub-options inside those two options. The number that we're voting on tonight, $2,061,847.26, is a very specific amount, even though we don't have a detailed project outline of bill of materials, hours, what the end project is going to look like. In your opinion, does this cover all of it, half of it, quarter of it?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
So it's an excellent point. The project budget will definitely vary as we go through the process. The project request was submitted a while ago, and then it goes into a 10-year plan, and then they index it for inflation, so we end up with this kind of odd number with some very specific cents, dollars and cents. I didn't want to complicate matters too much, but we did get another $1 million in congressionally directed funding added to this project. So at some point we'll be back and we'll be probably amending this agreement to incorporate that additional money. So the project budget in the end will end up being about $3.5 million or so. To the budget, I'd say we'll look at a bunch of alternatives, but the budget will be in our mind. So I think we'll kind of work towards that budget and not elect options that may be well outside the scope of that budget. The 2015 study referenced a bunch of options, and those will be looked at again as well, hopefully come up with some additional ones. Some of those were pre-Pennachuck having the headquarters there, so some of those are kind of out the window now that there's that facility there. But we'll go through this project, and again, the intent will be to kind of work to the budget, so to speak, so that we end up with the best project that we can for the funding that we have.
One follow-up, please.
Follow up, please.
Thank you for that. You mentioned a 10-year plan, and then you also mentioned 2015, 2023, fiscal year 24. I did notice in the outline for accepting this money, didn't we have to do something by 2025?
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So the funding for construction, given that additional funding that we'll be receiving, the additional $1 million, that comes with a hard deadline of obligating that funding by September 30th of 2025.
Okay.
So we essentially have 2 years to get through this process, which is typical for DOT projects. It's usually about a 2-year time frame. I mean, this is certainly could be a complicated project depending on what we run into. So, when we get this project underway, we're going to want to progress in an orderly fashion so we can meet that deadline.
So just to define it, obligated means here's the project that we have and we've signed off on it. We've gone through all the approvals by September 30, 2025. We don't need shovels in the ground. We don't need it completed. We just need it. Here's what it is.
That is correct. It means that we've gone through the environmental process, project design, we have bid package, and we're ready to advertise it for construction.
Okay.
When the bid package is ready to bid, DOT and Federal Highway approves that and obligates those funds, and then those funds are locked in. We have to spend the money by, I think it was 2030, so we have 5 years to actually complete this construction, whatever it is. But there is that hard deadline on the initial thing. And we just went through a much smaller project, but we basically accelerated the timeline so we could hit a deadline which had a similar hard deadline. And it's not fun to be under a hard deadline like that, but it certainly is motivating to get it done. So that's the situation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Okay. Further questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. This will be a roll call vote. Alderman John Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Ernest Jettie.
Yes.
Thank you. Alderman at Large Laurie Wilshire.
Yes.
The clerk, Director. Alderman at Large Michael O'Brien votes yes. I'll declare the motion passes. Motion carried. We'll now move on to new business ordinances. And Mr. Hudson, thank you so much. Okay. New business ordinances before us this evening is O-23-056, which is permitting certain funding transfers within the Public Works Division. I do not have a recommendation on this. Yes, Alderman Wilshire, would you like to make a motion so we can open up discussion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to recommend final passage of ordinance 2356.
Okay, we have a motion of final passage, and I'll turn to Mr. Griffin. Can you brief us on this, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. John Griffin, CFO, Treasurer, Tax Collector. To my left is Carolyn O'Connor, who you met during the budget process. She is the Senior Manager of DPW Finance and Administration. I'm going to give an overall explanation and thought behind this, and she could be the color person tonight for some real-life issues. So just to go back, the way our ordinance is set up is when you have a department, let's say it's street lighting, hydrants, one short, one has some surplus. Be great if I could have transferred that and not come before you with the trust that you put in the CFO's office, but the reality is you can't do that. You can't transfer money between departments. And for many years, I've worked with the mayor, Director Photo, Ms. O'Connor, legal, And we thought that this might be the time with the new building that houses virtually all of the management of the DPW division, and the recognition that budgets are tight, as you've gone through several budget iterations, that we might want to put a change to the ordinance that's very specific to DPW that would allow them to take their admin and engineering department, their street department, and their park and rec department, treat it as one, learn about the costs related to the new building, learn about how we can be more effective and efficient and so forth, and most importantly, to the extent some issues crop up during the year, one budget that might have a surplus, specifically like a street department in the springtime, might be able to transfer money for items that are needed. Well, the thought is that with the mayor being the chairman of the Department of the Board of Public Works and my working closely with Ms. O'Connor, that to give you some comfort, I would recommend a transfer to the mayor, and he and I would have to approve such a transfer. We do that now, just, you may or may not know, but we're the only ones that can move monies from payroll to non-payroll in each budget. And then for obvious reasons, we're prohibited from moving money from non-payroll to payroll. That's been in existence for several decades. Good reasons, but the thought here is that if we could treat the DPW operating divisions, not wastewater or solid waste, but if we could hone in on this one, they might have flexibility throughout the year and especially at the end of the year. We have some experience with this with our school district. As you folks know, you transfer $130 million to the school district under the Board of Education control. But Mr. Donovan uses this technique quite frequently as he tries to manage things like paper clips, pens, to make sure that each building, and they have 18 of them, have the right funding at the right time. So if you want to kind of see a bird's eye view, if you look at the financial statements online, the very last PDF is the transfers. And you'll see that there's a significant amount of school transfers, but they're all appropriate and they're all reviewed by Chief Operating Officer Dan Donovan under the leadership of the Plan Ops Finance Committee at the school district. So that's a little bit of background as to why we're here today, and wanted to present to you maybe a better way of gathering some efficiencies and some effectiveness. But I would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, have Ms. O'Connor explain some of the day-to-day activities and things that would help.
Absolutely. Welcome, Ms. O'Connor.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn O'Connor, Senior Manager, DPW Finance and Administration. Just to give you an understanding, DPW really operates as one division. Our functions, departments don't operate independently. They overlap a lot as they're preparing and doing projects. So there's a lot of interaction and work together on projects. So this would allow us to properly fund where things are needed. Parks and Rec and Admin Engineering have smaller budgets, so most of the transfers, if they were done, would probably come from the street department, where there might be a surplus near the end of the year. Being in the new facility together, it's made a lot of shared expenses where we're trying to save and get better pricing on such things as PPE, office supplies, cleaning supplies. So allowing us to process these transfers would make it easier to operate. To give you some examples that's happened in the past, like last year, pool chemicals increased substantially and that impacted Parks' operating budget. But if we had been able to possibly transfer some things out of streets when it was an easier winter, we would have had some more funding to go into Parks to allow them to do other repairs that they may have needed to do. Another example is, though Parks does budget for playground equipment, we could have something happen like we did a few years ago where a slide needed to be replaced, just not normal wear and tear. you don't realize like just replacing a slide is upwards of $10,000. So with $14,000 in the normal playground equipment repairs and maintenance, so that had a negative impact on their operating budget. So I think the beneficial thing that should make you feel a little bit more comfortable is that we are going to put in the controls that the CFO and mayor approve. It's not like the division's just going to be transferring around. And hopefully be able to make it that it can operate more smoothly. Because DPW, unlike other divisions, really is just one division where everyone works intertwined. That helps.
Okay, Howard, just for clarity, I'll recognize you next, Alderman Clemens. And looking at the ordinance is exactly what Mr. Griffin said. Skip down a part, but the whole gist of the ordinance is the mayor and chief financial officer to jointly authorize transfers within the public works. So it is saying exactly the way it was explained. Alderman Clemens.
Yeah, my question through you, to whoever can answer it. In the two examples, is it Miss O'Brien? O'Connor, okay.
Close
sorry.
enough, she's Irish.
Yeah, I'm Irish, we're all Irish here, so. My question is, in those two examples that you gave, did those requests eventually come to the Board of Aldermen for transfers? Or how were they resolved, or were they not resolved, or what ended up happening?
Really, they were absorbed into the operating budget, so other lines, we were lucky we made it through the year.
Okay.
We really,
Well, thank you, but, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and
Absolutely.
Alderman Clemens has been with me for several years. Very, very rarely do you get a resolution like what was described by Ms. O'Connor. People, the team just does what they need to do, but sometimes it's tough on the operating budgets because you didn't plan for it. So it's kind of a situation where it's a good safety net. And to actually, you folks know how long it takes to have a resolution. So if there's a resolution, first reading, committee, second reading, you know, it's a month or so, and then the water was probably already over the dam at that point. So look at it as kind of an inefficiency. And it won't be abused in the sense that I don't see us transferring millions of dollars from savings from snow and ice to pay for a new park or something like that. It's going to be these type of events that would be very beneficial to be able to solve things quickly. Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you very much.
Okay, Alderman Tebow, and then in the queue will be Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, and I don't know if either one of you know the answer to this question, the question through the chair. Other cities of our size, do you know what they do in the cases like this? And it may be something you guys just haven't looked at, but if you do know, I'd just be curious.
I would say that, well, I know I haven't looked at it, but I don't hear complaints from my colleagues that, boy, I wish I could transfer that money. But it is, we have a rigid structure. And I think working with Ms. O'Connor, Director Photo, and the mayor, this was kind of the perfect, and the combining of most of the management under one building, it was kind of a time for us to suggest that you take a look at this, and then we can see how it works.
Thanks.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, I have concern about this, and my concern is, and maybe you can allay it by where the oversight is. Because essentially what we did earlier tonight, I think it was a great example that you're here tonight talking about this, because just a few minutes ago, we approved a transfer of monies from one department to another department. And essentially what I think I'm hearing in this ordinance, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we're kind of removing the oversight from the Board of Aldermen to move monies. If it's $1 or if it's $100,000, it doesn't matter. It just, it just knocks that down and allows the department to say, I need to take this money from here to move it here. It's just one big department, so now we don't have to vote on it. So where is the accountability? And I can understand and appreciate that you want to look at that, but then I look at, you know, decades from now and whatnot, as far as when different people are in the seats, we want to make sure that there's oversight of this money and where it goes. And that's kind of where my concern sits with this ordinance. I understand we have the Board of Public Works as well. Are they involved in this? Do they have to vote in order to transfer dollars? Or is it only to yourself and the administration of DPW?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, with any kind of seeking of efficiencies, you have to kind of, I agree with you, your oversight is less. But as I indicated in the previous answer, it just doesn't get done. You're gonna see the one tonight that you recommend for final passage. You'll probably have two more for your first meeting in August to what I call shore things up. But what's been lost here is the inability for the division to basically recognize, boy, it would be great if I had money to do that. I need to do it soon. Do I really want to go a month and a half to figure out what, you know what I mean? It might be done. So since I've been here, there was an alderman that was very keen on transfers. And he would communicate directly with me on the transfers. And furthermore, he communicated directly with the chief operating officer of transfers in the school department. So there was, if you so choose, you can get answers as to why. But the other thing that's going to happen is when you go through your budget process and you look back at what's been spent, you're going to see movement of the budget dollars from the streets to a park rec, and you can ask questions at that time. So there should be a lot of oversight, and that's why the mayor and I felt very strongly that he and I are the only ones that can approve. But the answer to the BPW question is you folks are the ones that control how the monies are transferred and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Alderman Jettie.
Thank you. So I have similar concerns. And this is not a reflection on the people who are currently in these positions. This is not a reflection on you or the mayor, or the public works director. But you may not be CFO forever. The mayor may not be mayor forever. And similarly with the director of public works. And what concerns me, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I think about, for example, this is a hypothetical, I'm just making this up, but let's say that, some of the aldermen, feel that, a certain park, has been neglected for a long time, and they feel that ought to be rectified. And they lobby and they get support from the rest of the Board of Aldermen to allocate a certain amount of money to make improvements at that park. But then, after we do that, the Director of Public Works feels that, the lights, the Silver Knights need, better lighting, and that the lights at Holman Stadium ought to be replaced, and decides that a better use of that money would be to take care of the lights at Holman Stadium. And she, gets you to go along with it, and the mayor thinks it's a good idea. I mean, would you be able to transfer, in spite of what the aldermen, want that money to be used for, you could transfer the money from that project to another project, without our approval?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think the big differentiator is those are more capital items. We're requesting to take care of ongoing operational matters with more effectiveness and efficiency. So I wouldn't approve, and probably my successors wouldn't approve, a $200,000 transfer from streets. Well, we couldn't do it because we don't have the approval of doing it. We can't transfer that into park rehabilitation or things like that.
So how does that, may I continue?
Follow up?
Sorry. So how does this ordinance reassure me or anyone else who has that concern? You know, where in the ordinance does it limit you on, when you say, you know, that you wouldn't, you know, it would be it wouldn't involve a capital expense? You know, where does it say that? And when you say you wouldn't approve 200,000, where does it say that? Where are the limitations?
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, try to get to it with general fund accounts, the last three lines of this underlined area.
General, okay, the last three words, general fund accounts?
General fund accounts, we could put operating. General fund operating accounts, I think that's really the intent,
Okay.
not a project-based. So for example, when we did some work at one of the parks to get some lighting for safety and other reasons, we put it into the expendable trust fund and spent it out of that fund.
Okay.
But I know you've always, Alderman Jettie, I've appreciated you literally reading and then wondering and protecting down the road. Just trying to think what could be amended to make sure it's the operating accounts.
We could just state that, correct? We couldn't excuse me, I can entertain an amendment at this time and basically strike general fund accounts and just submit operational accounts.
Well, it would still, Mr. Chair, it would still be general fund, but it would be the operating accounts, not any other type of account like capital.
Okay, so it'd be general fund accounts and operational
It would be general fund operational accounts.
/ operational.
Well, just put or operating in front of accounts. And I think you'd have it.
General fund operating accounts.
Okay.
So,
Alderman Jettie.
yeah, so I would offer an amendment to add the word operating between fund and accounts, the last two words, so it would read general fund operating accounts.
Yep.
That would be acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment. Okay, seeing none, we have to go by a roll call vote. Alderman Sullivan.
On the amendment, yes.
Alderman at large Roshana Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
And Alderman O'Brien votes yes. Motion carries. The amendment does carry. And now we're back to the original motion. Further discussion on the original motion as amended. Alderman Jettie.
So thank you. So that, hopefully that takes care of that problem. But what about the limitation? You know, you said, for example, you wouldn't approve as much as 200,000. Is there a limitation that you would be comfortable with, that we could further amend this to limit the dollar amount?
Mr. Chairman, I was more thinking of this as kind of solving the issues that we had. I wasn't thinking of the magnitude. For example, the mayor and I, over the last few weeks, have approved transfers from salary to non-salary to cover expenses that were non-salary. Not sure, I wasn't thinking of a limitation. I'm just thinking the reality would be that I'm not sure what would come up that would be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
So could,
Well, finish what you,
No, that,
okay, Alderman Jettie.
so when you say that you and the mayor have approved transfers from non-payroll to payroll, so in the analysis, I'm reading the last sentence of the analysis, and it says, any transfers from non-payroll accounts into payroll accounts will still require the approval of the Board of Aldermen pursuant to NRO 5-130D.
right, so if I may, as I mentioned at the beginning, we cannot take non-payroll and put it into payroll without aldermanic approval. For some reasons that you can imagine, a couple of us are in cahoots, we transfer money into a payroll account and pay it. We don't want to do that, and we don't want any of our successors to do that, so. Not sure if it ever happened, but it's customary in municipal and governmental budgeting and processing not to be able to transfer without the appropriating authority of knowing about it and approving it.
So may I follow up?
All right, I have other aldermen in the queue, Alderman.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to understand what the CFO Griffin is saying.
Oh, go ahead.
They transfer out of payroll to non-payroll, things they can't transfer into payroll. The mayor and
From
CFO.
payroll to something else.
Right.
So they can transfer out of payroll into
Okay.
a non-payroll expense line.
Okay, so just,
And that's why that is really there to, further explain. That we're not changing that, we're changing the other transfer.
okay, so is there no limit that you can tell us that you'd be comfortable with?
I mean, I'd like to, what do you think, Carol?
I don't want to just toss one out, hadn't really thought of a limit, because I was thinking more just small operational things, like, from transferring 200,000, we don't really even, maybe some lines we have 200,000, but you would close out that line, you wouldn't be able to operate.
Alderman
I'm sorry.
Clemmons.
Are you saying that,
Excuse me, Alderman Jettie. Alderman Clemmons has now been recognized.
I'll let.
Okay, you will
Alderman Jettie-
yield?
I will
All
let
right.
Alderman Jettie.
Keep in
finish.
mind, Alderman Jettie, other aldermen do have
yeah,
pertinent
I
questions.
understand, I just didn't hear what she was saying. I mean,
I'm just saying that we couldn't, such a large transfer would close out a line, we wouldn't have that much money in a line. So I hadn't thought of a limit as to what would be appropriate. I was just thinking of the overage that we run into.
And as chair, I would feel much more comfortable if this went for a vote. People vote your conscience. You don't like it, vote it down. That's your prerogative. Than to have these people indiscriminately come out with take a dot and throw it at a board a mile away and say this is the limit. I think that needs to have some, fiscal responsibility or research if that question was to be answered. Okay, all set, Alderman Jettie?
for now, I mean, I would like to make another motion, but I'll wait till other people have a chance to speak.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, through you to Mr. Griffin. So of these accounts, or departments really that we're talking about, can you give me a ballpark figure of how much we have, generally speaking, at the end of the year as a surplus between all of these accounts? Like are you able to give me a ballpark tonight, or is that something you'd have to come back on?
I would say, Mr. Chairman, that depends on the vagaries of winter, and there's been some years that we've had to dip into the snow expendable trust fund, but with a mild to light winter, there could be millions as surplus.
Between all of the ones that are listed?
Between Park Rec and admin administration, those are small budgets, but the fact that we budget for snow and ice removal is unique in the sense that in Massachusetts, you would never do that. You'd basically budget a modest amount and then what they call raise it on the recap the next year. They tax the next year. We actually provide for good coverage and then dip into the expendables trust fund as necessary, but take that surplus. And usually through some type of escrow process, we reposition it for other needs that we weren't able to budget in that current year.
Follow-up?
So, I guess my question is it safe to say that between all of those departments, you're typically coming out with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in surplus at the end of that's unexpended?
I would say hundreds of thousands, but
hundreds? No.
And they're unique in the areas I mentioned. They're not, when you budget $14,000 a year for replacement of playground equipment, that's not a lot. You're not gonna have a lot of surplus there. And at most you'll have 14,000. It's really in the payroll and operational requirements. Salt is a big number, but it's the labor that we budget for the overtime to plow the streets and so forth. So, but Carolyn.
If I could just add, the snow budget's only 1.3 million as a total. And truly Parks Rec and admin have very minimal balances at the end of the year. And as I said, this year with chemicals being so much higher in Park Rec and all that was actually one of the reasons that we had to request a transfer out of, luckily we had some vacancies into the other operating expenses for Park Rec. Very minimal money is left in those two departments. If there was any transfers that were done, it would really have to come out of streets. That has a larger budget. But we only have a $1.3 million total budget for snow operations. We'd have to buy no salt, no sand, and have a super sunny winter to be able to have this. And this is really more just on the operational needs should we have shortfalls in the other departments.
Alderman Clemmons, follow-up?
Yeah, well, more of a comment. I guess the way I kind of look at this is we budget a certain amount of money, right? We put that money in the budget, and at the end of the day, we're very accustomed in Nashua to getting, because we budget so well, and we spend, more importantly though, we spend very well in Nashua. People say we have a spending problem, but every year we come back and we have, literally millions of dollars to do, escrow. We put money back towards taxes to pay down the tax rate for the following year. And that's because we don't overspend, right? The only way you could do that is to not overspend. So I understand the concerns of some of my colleagues about not wanting to give away some of that control. But on the other hand, when we craft a budget, we craft it so that the money can be spent. and we authorize it and say, we want you to spend it, it's for the benefit of our city. So when I think about what this is doing, it's basically just saying, we've already authorized that money to be spent, even though it might not be necessarily spent where we thought it was, because something else came up over here. And so you're taking from here to pay here, because maybe, you know, like I said, we do budget and we do spend well. So maybe you got a deal on something here that you can take that excess revenue and do something unexpected over here that came up. And to me, that's what you do in your household. I mean, that's what people do every single day when they go out and they shop and they buy stuff for their house, or they plan for improvements, things like that. You try to go out and get the best deal you can. City has an excellent reputation for doing that. So I think when this, I don't have a vote tonight, but I think when this comes to the full Board of Aldermen, I will definitely support it. I don't think that there needs to be a limitation on it, because again, the limitation, in my opinion, comes during the budget season, and comes when the budget comes before us, and then we say, you ask those questions of, well, what did you transfer between the departments, and what did, you know, what lines or whatever were overspent, but because of the fact that you transferred money over here or there, should we adjust some of those lines? But to me, at the end of the day, if there's money left in the bank, we appropriated that money to be spent anyway. If they can do stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do because it wasn't in a certain account, but it should have been done, I think that's a shame. So I think I will be supporting this when it comes to the full board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay, Alderman Jettie, I think everybody has spoken. I'll give you your...
Okay, thank you. So I would move to table to allow the CFO to come up with a number, a limitation that he would be comfortable with.
Okay, there's a motion to table, non-debatable motion. I will, this will be a roll call vote. Alderman Sullivan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Kelly,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire,
Yes.
and Alderman O'Brien votes no. Okay, the ayes have it, and the motion is tabled. Okay, there is one other item on the table, but nobody's brought in any attention to bring it forward. General discussion. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was on the city website over the past 48 hours looking around. We're 1 month into, CFO left, we're 1 month into the fiscal year. I could not find for the life of me where the fiscal year 2024 budget was. It was there, now it's gone. And then I also wanted to speak to the fact that we're now almost at the end of July, and the financial statements are only up to date through the end of May. You know, so I just wonder how long it takes to, you know, go through the June statements and come up with that. So I guess I'll follow up with CFO Griffin on those questions, because that was a little bit, I don't want to say disturbing, but I couldn't find the budget.
Well, I assure you, we didn't lose a budget overnight, you know, but...
I understand, but we're now 1 month into the fiscal year, and if I wanted to know where the budget was, I couldn't find it on the website.
But your points are well taken, but Alderman Sullivan, it's above my pay grade. I think maybe a follow-up with CFO Griffin would be the wise thing at this particular time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your concerns. Okay, anybody else on general discussion? Okay, I would like to just basically say, I've seen several things, and I remember writing an ordinance for the city, and perhaps Alderman Wilshire and Alderman Clemens remember. And that was, I think, when I was on the Board of Finance. And for appropriations, our predecessors wanted to keep their thumbs, that it got down to Park Rec couldn't even buy a lawnmower. That it was $10,000. I don't know exactly, off the top of my head, what our operational budget for the city, but our predecessors were worried about $10,000 on a lawnmower. Okay? Brought it to I wrote an ordinance, brought it to the board and raised it to $25,000. I look at this, where we built a brand new facility. One time we had Public Works, we still have the garages that down by Stadium Drive. They have to stay there for now. But Park Rec has changed and moved into one general facility. Street department is there. The landfill department is there. So now, in modern terminology, basically it's a lot easier for the director to look and see. People are walking by her office that she, hey, come in, explain to me this and that and everything else. So I was pretty comfortable with some of the transfers. I am also the liaison to the Board of Public Works, and I do see how they approve some of the issues at hand there. And it's all above the board, so.
To your point, Alderman O'Brien, and I can understand, and Alderman Jettie said it, and I should have prefaced my comments when I said it. My concern is with overall oversight of transfers of money, where earlier in the night, this board authorized the movement of money. All the people in the seats right now are great people. They've all been there a long time.
Right.
But you said nothing personal. Well, you're right. There's nothing personal about this. It's all about checks and balances within the city. And that just, when I read that, and then I read the ordinance, I went, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. Because right now, in this environment, it's fine. It's fine. But in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now, those people won't be in the seats. It might be somebody different, somebody that you don't agree with, and you don't feel that they have proper oversight. So at that point, you want to take that back. That's why I treat that pretty seriously.
Right. But also, too, Alderman Sullivan, keep in mind that futuristic boards do supervise, and they will supervise in the future.
Of course, and we can always change the law. But to your point about the $10,000 lawnmower, I would go back to your department heads, and when it comes to budgeting, and it was said earlier about, we don't have a spending problem. No, we probably don't. But do we have a budgeting problem? If we have surpluses where we have surpluses, then I take point to that perhaps we do have a budgeting issue, that maybe we're overshooting it. Maybe we need to scrutinize the budgets a little bit more and look at trends and look at where things are going. I mean, if we're back and forth on a $10,000 lawnmower, I mean, I understand your point, but I think that might be more of an outlier as opposed to everyday occurrences.
Well, my point was trying to get quorums for meetings for the $10,000 lawnmower at the time. And as you saw this evening, we were sweating a quorum, earlier. So that was happening at that particular time. Any other general comment? Okay, seeing none, public comment, seeing nobody from the public here. We'll close public comment. Remarks from Alderman, which we just had general discussion, so I'll classify that as the same unless somebody wants to opine on something else. Seeing none. Alderman Wilshire, do you have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. This will be a roll call vote. Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes. I'll declare the meeting closed at 8:15 p.m. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.